I'm Danielle.
I'm Mary.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Marnie. So we're here today to talk a little bit about Common Core and that initiative. And there's a standards-based reform right now, and the whole idea was to create that an equal and level playing field for everybody, regardless of their zip code or their social economic standing or their ethnic background. And we need to be holding all those students to those same rigorous standards to fully prepare them for college and for a career. Right now, the Common Core is consistent with this equal conception of equality, so that all learners are held to or have access to the same standards and opportunities and expectations.
Mm-hmm.
But as educators and leaders, we all know that that alone isn't going to close that achievement gap, and that there are so many other factors that we need to take into account and look more at an expansion conception.
And the other issue with that, which you already mentioned, but the equity piece obviously doesn't mean equal. So a lot of times I feel like so many people just throw money at a situation, they say we're going to spend the same amount here as we are here, when in reality the kids who really are suffering are the ones who are going to need more.
Right.
And so that's really, I mean, that's pretty obvious, but that's where the equity piece is different than being equal.
Well, and both articles are talking about how leaders are going to have to change to respond to this new era of technology and technology-based, and how quickly things move and change, and how students are going to be able to access information. But one of the things that comes out of it is an equity issue. It has to do with funding. And funding really is tricky because we have an awful lot of infrastructure that needs to be funded right now. And that takes away from some of the money that can be spent on an awful lot of PD that needs to happen. And that's one thing that I'm noticing when I'm at sites, is that it's not that teachers are resistant to Common Core. In fact, they're excited about the rigor that's involved, but they're not prepared to be leaders in their own classroom because they're really unsure of what it means. And so much of the funding right now is being shifted to that infrastructure piece that I think a lot of the PD is going away.
And a lot of that money that's going towards the technology it's not going towards teaching the students how to use that technology.
Exactly.
And now we're going to be testing them on using technology instead of what is actually on the test and those DOK levels and all.
And to address the DOK levels, definitely the old system of testing only used the DOKs 1 and 2, which were really surface information. And as we kind of discussed earlier, but now the Smarter Balance is going to be testing much deeper, research-based questions that students are going to have to know how to do their research, find multiple sources, and be able to bring it all together in the time that they're tested. And I think going back to what you said, Mary, about teachers not being ready for that yet, that's going to be really a big leadership issue going forward, is that leaders are going to have to know how to get their teachers to feel comfortable with that kind of instruction, and to know really what, how to teach these kids how to do this. I mean, we all know how to do it, but how do we teach it at the varying levels?
And the most exciting part about my background is social science. So bringing to my social science teachers about DOK level 1 and 2, we would talk about Civil War starting in the 1860s, blah. We're like, that's great and that's cool, but we could look that stuff up on the internet. We could find it in 3 seconds. Every kid has a phone. Now we're like, why don't we take something like greed, right? So we want to do U.S. history and greed, and then we can throw all these other subject matters that relate to greed and then really analyze it and go deeper. But like you said, the professional development's not there. We're completely taking an entire 18-week U.S. history course, and now we have to rebuild it, and we're going thematically versus, going through the timeline. And so there's a lot of challenges with that. But if you can get to the other side of it, the exciting part for the kids to be able to see how much more meaning it has and how it can apply to their regular life is pretty cool. Pretty exciting subject.
And this discussion, we could go on and on, really. This is a really big topic.
Yeah.
So is there anything else we need to say before we wrap up?
I had one more thing about equity, and we talked about it earlier in the day, and it has to do with students with special needs and students whose language maybe is not English as their first language. And a student who comes in with a very varied background and has strength in English, is better prepared to deal with this rigor, whereas with students with special needs and students who don't have English as their first language are really up against a much bigger barrier. And I'm worried that because so little money right now seems to be going into PD, that those students are going to get left even further behind, which is the opposite idea
Common Core
behind
wants.
Common Core. I mean,
Exactly.
Common Core really wants to bring everybody forward, and I just see that unless we as leaders really address that, then we're going to have students who get further behind and not.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
The gap will get wider.
yes.